At E3 2013, which feels like a century ago, Ubisoft revealed The Division, a game that was billed as being one of the first truly next-gen titles, both in regards to its visuals and gameplay. After a few delays, it finally released in 2016. Back then, when I was just a small, unknown YouTuber, okay, well, I still am, but you get the idea, I reviewed The Division, and disliked it enough to give it a 4 out of 10. The visuals didn't quite meet the high bar set by the trailers, but what really let me down was its repetitive, unsatisfying gameplay. However, since then, other games like Fallout 76 have used The Division's template to significantly lesser effect, so much so that I've come to appreciate it just a little bit more than I originally did. Because of this, when it came to Division 2 versus Anthem, I expected Division 2 to be the better game, and some weird part of me thought that it could even end up being decent in general. Logically, Division has already had an entire game to iterate on its formula, and Anthem, being made by a beleaguered BioWare and published by EA, has everything working against it all while it tries to play catch-up with a far more mature game. And yes, Division 2 and Anthem do have significantly different gameplay mechanics and settings, but their loot-based MMO-light styles and close release dates make them inseparable. Before playing this beta, I did play Anthem's demo, and if you'd like to know more about that, I'll have my impressions video linked in the description. Long story short though, Anthem's gameplay has some specks of potential, but it runs horribly, the missions are bland, and the content likely isn't there to make it last more than 2 weeks after launch. After playing it, I was even more certain that Division was going to be better, but after playing this closed beta, I'm not so sure anymore. Before we go in, I want to make it clear that I only played Division 1 vanilla. From what I understand, the game changed considerably with patches and content drops, so there might be some things that were new to me that are not actually new for Division, and I'm definitely lacking the context for this game that a veteran player has. So let's get this right out of the way. Division 2 is not a radical reimagining of the formula established back in 2016. Just by looking at the map, you can see that the same format of do things in Area X from level A to B, so that you can do things in Area Y from level C to D, very much remains intact. Gameplay is pretty much the same too. Aiming with a mouse is smooth, but the guns have little to no feedback when fired. Compared to Anthem though, the enemies are more satisfying to kill, and their health bars seem to be more reasonable than what I remember from Division 1. The AI is horrible though. Absolutely horrible. Visually, it's not as good looking as I thought it would be based on other people's gameplay videos on YouTube, but I did drop some settings down to medium to gain FPS. While we're on the topic, the game could certainly run a bit better, but it's not even close to being as bad as Anthem. Content-wise, I played maybe 2 or 3 story missions and then a handful of side missions. The story missions are identical to what I remember from the first game. Enter this building, kill all enemies while plowing through it, and then have an anticlimactic boss fight. Side missions were much shorter and involved things like securing an enemy camp, but were equally disinteresting. Just like Anthem, I didn't expect the leveling experience to blow me away. With games like this, I've come to accept that, while it should absolutely be better, the story content is never going to be that good, and it's the end game experience that really matters. So you can imagine that I was happy to find out that a slice of endgame content was included in this beta. They let you pick a maxed out character and tackle one mission. Oddly enough, that mission was exactly the same as one of the other story missions, with the only differences being level and enemy faction. As I mentioned earlier, the AI is atrocious, and ramping up the difficulty doesn't do much to help that. The faction featured in this version of the mission was slightly more interesting to fight than the raiders in the low-level version, and I was happy to see that even in the endgame, health levels are still pretty reasonable. Disappointingly, however, playing as an endgame character didn't seem all that different from playing as a low-level one, and worse yet, the guns felt the same to me. Finally, there's the Dark Zones, the Division's most unique and defining trait if you ask me. In concept, they're really cool. Fight for elusive gear and then get the hell out without having it stolen by other players. Or, if you're more aggressive, let everyone else do the hard work for you and then hunt them down afterwards. Back in the first game, I enjoyed it quite a bit in the beta, and then didn't have as much fun with it in the full game. This time around, I only got to play a little bit of the Dark Zones before the beta went offline, so I honestly don't have that much of an opinion on how they are here, but I can say that what I did play was extremely brutal, both PvE and PvP. I also don't think it's made for solo play, and that's something that I felt the entire time I was playing this beta in general. While friends can make almost any game good, everything here, especially the Dark Zones, seems to be made with squad play in mind, and as a result, even a mere 3 hours of solo beta play was incredibly lonely. I did pick up on some nice quality of life updates, but to me, Division 2 seems like more of the same, and while things like the 8-man raid are exciting, I'm already exhausted by the idea of chugging through the entire story just to get there. It's not even close to being the improvement I hoped for, and although there are areas in which it's clearly better than Anthem, I don't think it's outright better overall. While Anthem's content isn't there to back up its potentially interesting combat, Division 2's uninteresting combat makes it hard for me to get excited about its potentially interesting content. If the strengths of these two games could magically be put together, you might have a decent game, but based on these demos, it looks like neither one of them is going to be able to get there independently, at least at launch. I highly doubt that any of you played this beta, but if you have any thoughts on the coming war between Anthem and Division 2, let me know in the comments below, and until next time, thanks for watching.